In life, we encounter people every day, all of whom have stories to share. We rarely take the time to ask people their personal stories, many of which will touch, move, and inspire us in some way. Matt has a passion for making authentic connections and learning about people from all walks of life. He has lived a life of giving back to the community and making a difference in people's lives. Are you ready to meet fascinating people and hear some inspiring stories? The Matt Hilton Show will introduce you to a world of possibilities you never knew existed. Sit back, be present, and enjoy. Here's your host, Matt Hilton.
Hey everyone, Matt Hilton here, the host of the Matt Hilton Show. Thanks for tuning in. Today's guest is a great friend of mine. We've served together in a networking group here in Dallas, and he is a past accountant turned to family law attorney. You don't want to miss his story. Stay tuned for a word from our sponsor.
Inspired, experienced, customer-focused. Find a mortgage that fits your needs with Maria Leach at First United Bank Mortgage, specializing in construction and closing all types of loans, including jumbo, portfolio, conventional, FHA, and VA. A tenured team, outstanding service, competitive programs. Finance your dreams with Maria Leach at First United Bank Mortgage. mleach.firstunitedteam.com, 214-316-7915. mleach at firstunitedbank.com. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Like, is it just abuse? Is it what? So yeah, there's all sorts of stuff.
Sure.
All right, here we go. I'm going to count you down, Matt, and then we'll here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining today to the Matt Hilton Show. And today's guest is a friend of mine that I've known for several years. We have been in a networking group together called BNI, Business Networking International. And so Greg Beane is with me today and with us. And Greg, thank you so much for being here.
Well,
and
thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So Greg is a family law attorney and specializes in family law.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So you have a couple of other specializations. What are those?
Well, my specialization, I am board certified in family law by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization. And what is family law, you ask? I get this a lot. Oh, so you do family law. That means you do trusts and estates. No, not at all. Family law, primarily divorce, child custody, child support, premarital agreements, anything dealing with the marriage relationship. So basically, marriages can end one of two ways, death or divorce. Death, that's what probate attorneys deal with. I deal with the other one. So.
With the other,
Yeah.
Okay. So I have some questions about what you do for a living. Like, I used to be a private investigator, and a lot of my clients were family law attorneys.
Yeah.
They would hire me to go get the evidence, although it really didn't matter in court typically. But it was to confirm, what the spouse was feeling. They got intuition that their spouse was cheating on them. 99% of the time they were right? But with that, I felt like my job, if you will, at times was quite depressing. Because I'm always in people's muck and their sadness, right? Have you ever done a happy divorce?
Sure, yes, actually. A lot of times by the time the divorce is over, somebody's happy. Not necessarily with the process, because nobody likes the divorce process.
Sure.
But hopefully, after they go through the process, they are happier. That's the reason a lot of people get divorced, is because they're unhappy for whatever reason. And hopefully the divorce would make them actually happier.
Yeah. And I think happiness is it's definitely something that is not concrete, right? It's very subjective.
Subjective, yeah. Absolutely.
And so, because sometimes people get divorced because they have another person on the side that they're thinking, oh, I want a relationship with this person now instead of the first person I married or the second person or whatever. So what are some stats? We discussed this before the show. The stats are like first marriages that end in divorce, so forth and so on.
Okay, so, people usually say about half of marriages end in divorce, and I would say that's probably about right. For first marriages, I've seen a stat that says about 42% of first marriages end in divorce, about 60% of second marriages, and then if you get to the third marriage, it's like 73%, somewhere along in there, of those end in divorce. I'll tell you, I get this question a lot. What have you seen during COVID? Has the divorce rate gone up? And I think everybody thinks it did. It's actually gone down.
Really?
I was surprised when I saw that, because from what I'm seeing, it's gone through the roof. But that it's going to go up probably in the next year or two, because the courts are so backed up. More people are filing for divorce, but not everybody's getting one yet. So yeah, since we're talking about stats, I just thought that was an interesting one that I read a couple of weeks ago, actually.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So as people are, I don't know, you would think that, is it because a lack of commitment? Is it because people get married too early? Is it a combination of all those? Like, what do you see as, like, if you had any word of advice for anybody that's looking to get married, like, what do you see that, in your opinion, would make it work, make it last, versus becoming a stat?
Communication. That's number one.
That's number one.
Yeah. The things you said earlier, maybe they have somebody on the side, maybe all this, that certainly happens. I'll say that's usually more of a symptom than the problem. I'll say what I see more than anything is people grow apart. And, you hear people say that all the time, but it's true. And where does that come from? Not communicating. You have one spouse that's working all the time, traveling, not spending as much time with the other spouse, and maybe the other spouse is focused on the kids all the time. And, they kind of start leading their own separate lives and don't focus on each other. And that's where marriages start to run into problems. And then if you don't recognize that from the beginning and not see where it's going, then you just drift further and further apart, to where you have two people living in a house that just, it's not that they hate each other, a lot of the cases I'm involved in, it's not people yelling, screaming, and fighting with each other. It's they don't talk. They may see each other, a couple of times a day in passing, not say anything. Those, I think, are a lot of times the marriages that are in worse shape.
Yeah, it's kind of a roommate situation.
Right.
Right? It's like you're just rooming together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what got you interested in being a family law attorney? There's got to be some story behind that.
It was the one area of law I said I would never practice. So I decided to go to law school. I have a business background. So I have an accounting undergrad degree. I have an MBA in finance, and then decided to go to law school. Okay. I knew I wanted to be in a courtroom. I knew I wanted to try cases for a living, do the litigation thing as opposed to contracts and things of that nature. But I never wanted to do family law. I was dating a girl at the time when I was in law school. I'm now married to her. She's the mother of my child, and she is wonderful. But we had this discussion, what area of law do I want to practice? I said, I don't want to do family law because I don't want to be involved in that drama. It's, too emotionally taxing, those kind of things. And she agreed. She said, I don't want you to do family law. Because then you're going to be against the institution of marriage. You're not going to want to get married to me, and those things. Well, fast forward, I graduate from law school. I get a job back out in East Texas. I'm from a small town in East Texas. Get a job back out there in a small town, and you basically take every case that comes in the door. I mean, you tried all kinds of different cases. I was doing criminal law. I was doing civil. I was doing real estate, probate. We represented school districts and water districts. all kinds of stuff.
Right.
But I worked for a solo practitioner out there, and he would not do family law. He wouldn't touch it. And I thought, oh, that's great, because I don't want to do it either. This is awesome. But, he pulled me aside one day and said, hey, look, if you want your own caseload and you want to get in the courtroom a lot, try some of these divorces that are coming in the door that I won't do, that I just turn away. So, okay, sure, why not? I did it. I loved it. And, fast forward, after a few months of that, I was talking to my girlfriend, and she said, what's going on with this? Why are you doing this? I said, well, you wouldn't believe the stuff people fight over. This makes what we fight over, we argue about who's going to take out the trash and do the dishes and stuff like that. That's fine. I can, it makes me respect the institution of marriage more, and it makes me see kind of, along the lines of what we talked about with communication a minute ago, kind of see where things are going wrong and get things back on track.
Right.
And a year or two later, we married, and here we are.
And how many years?
12 years.
So how does your job affect the way you view marriage? Like, are you more in tune with what needs to happen to make a great marriage because you see the result of lack of communication or whatever And has that helped your marriage?
Yeah, I think it actually has helped. Like I was saying with the lack of communication, I can see it more from the beginning, and my wife does too. So, if we go a few days without really talking to one another or whatever, we're involved in our own things, then, we both recognize it now, and that's helped so much. And, unfortunately, I think that's where a bunch of marriages fall apart. So, but it's helped us.
Yeah. So when would someone need a prenup? You mentioned that earlier, and my perspective is a prenup is just basically saying this marriage is going to fail. And so I need something in place.
As divorce insurance?
There you go. So isn't that what it is?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, there are some provisions in there on it, of course, but it's kind of an estate planning tool as well. And also, it gets married couples or engaged couples to think about things they normally wouldn't. I'll tell you, when people get married, a lot of times the arguments change. It's dealing with finances now when they've never had that conversation in the beginning.
Right.
But in prenups, most of the time we put in there, how are the bills going to be paid? How are we going to deal with money during the marriage? It's also how the marriage is going to be run, not just what happens in case of a divorce. So it's kind of a blueprint for how you're financially going to stay married and what you're going to do during the marriage.
Okay. So is that something that every couple should probably look into?
Of course, I'm going to recommend everybody do it.
Sure.
Does everybody necessarily have to do it? No, but I would certainly recommend it. And if you're not going to do a prenup, at least have those conversations.
Yeah.
But I think prenups are good, like I said, just for building the blueprint of financially how you're going to live your lives.
Yeah. Wow. So yeah, like I said, when I was doing the surveillance work, and I've got some stories, and one day I will probably write a book. But is there, without naming names or specific details, is there a story? Is there a divorce that stands out that you're like, that was the divorce of the century? Like, you know what I'm talking? Like, is there one that just stands out to Greg that? Yeah.
Well, I have several that stand out for differing reasons. Some are stories I can tell you and some I can't.
Sure.
But just to give a story that kind of encapsulates people going through a divorce. This was when I was practicing in a small town, represented a wife, and it's the typical American family. They didn't have kids, but they have a house. Each one has a car and bank accounts. And they're getting a divorce, unfortunately. And they're fighting like cats and dogs, but neither one of them know exactly what they're fighting about. We get to the date of the final trial, and I talk to the other attorney. We're trying to work out a deal, and we're almost there. Okay, my client gets her car. They're going to split house proceeds or whatever they're going to do. And it gets down to the propane grill. And we're butting heads over the propane grill, and nobody wants to give in. My client wants it, the husband wants it, and neither one's going to budge. So we go through a couple of rounds of talks, me and the other attorney. Finally, he comes out and says, all right, Greg, your client wins. She gets the grill. She is ecstatic. We're all happy. And this is on a Friday afternoon. He's going to deliver the grill Saturday at noon. Well, I come in Monday morning to work, and I have tons of messages. Like, okay, what's going on? I call her, Miss So-and-so, didn't he deliver the grill? Well, yes, he did, but that SOB took the propane tank off of it. Okay. Well.
That's refillable at Walmart,
yeah,
right?
I said, that's $20. Yeah. We can just let it go. I know, but it's the principle. And she wants me to go to court and tell the judge what happened and all this. So, this involves filing a motion and doing all these things. And I think when the bill got sent out the next month, we kind of dropped that. But
wow, over a propane grill.
Yeah, it was one of my first cases out there. So that's why it kind of sticks out in my mind and just makes me think, oh my goodness.
At any point in that process, did you think, I'll just go buy you a grill, like just to get this thing over?
I'm pretty sure I said that at one point.
That's what I would have done.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, right.
But no, it's the principle.
Yeah, it is.
So I was saying earlier, I have a business background. I have a accounting degree and an MBA. So I took economics classes back in those days. And one thing that sticks out to me from economics class, like one of the first assumptions you deal with, is the assumption that everyone acts in their own self-interest. And that is true for, most economic theory, game theory, things like that. In divorce, it's out the window. So, as a divorce attorney, it's kind of my challenge to look at things objectively and to get this into my client's head sometimes. Like, look, here's what we need to fight over. There are serious things that we need to fight over, and some things we just don't.
Yeah.
The propane tank, let's let that go. But some of these other things over here, yes, it's worth a fight.
For sure. Yeah, and I equate what you just said to what I do as a realtor, right? There are certain things that,
absolutely,
as we're in the negotiation of repairs and whatever else, you look at the structure, the systems, the safety and security of the home, what I call the 3 S's, right? Versus the cosmetic stuff that you don't really need to worry about, right? But the big things, let's worry about those and focus on those. And I think it's just an expectations conversation, right? Of, hey, as we enter into this is what we can expect. This is from my experience, what you can look forward to possibly happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Like I said, it's my job to look at things objectively and to come in from that different perspective.
Right.
If I'm getting that emotional on my client's emotional level about these things, I'm doing my client no favors.
Have you ever had a moment where you did, like it was such an emotional type of case, like when kids are involved, I would assume it gets emotional at times, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, so how do you disassociate as a parent? How do you?
That's a hard question to answer. I don't know. It's, as you do this long enough, it's, you kind of get used to it. There are still a lot of happy days at my job, and there's some sad ones. There's some things that'll make you laugh. There's some things that make you cry.
Yeah.
But again, you just have to remember what your job is and what you're there for. Whether your client's in the right or in the wrong. You just have to be honest about it. Tell your client, especially if they're in the wrong, and if they're in the right, fight for them in the courtroom.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about what you do for a job. So what do you like to do for fun?
Well, I have a 7-year-old daughter, and so now that's involving, going to soccer games and doing all those kind of things. But I like to play golf as well. I like to relax as much as possible. But I would say my main hobby would be golf. I've been playing since I was a kid.
Okay. You have a favorite course?
I'm a member at Brookhaven Country Club.
Okay.
They have 3 courses out there, so I play those as often as I can.
Yeah.
Favorite course ever, for my 40th birthday, my wife took me to Pebble Beach as a 40th birthday present. So that was my favorite, definitely.
What made it your favorite? Was it just the nostalgia of being there at Pebble Beach, or what was it? I'm not a golfer, so that's why I'm asking.
I thought that's what it was going to be. It's really cool seeing. Watching golf growing up and seeing all the U.S. Opens and everything that's happened there and playing those holes, there was something to that. But just the beauty of the course, that's what you don't expect. I mean, some of those holes are on a cliff overlooking the bay, and you look out there as you're standing over a putt and there's a whale jumping. I mean, it's just really cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But, also being on the 17th green where Tom Watson chipped in to win the U.S. Open that year, it's just being there and thinking of stuff like that is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So you're into soccer. Any chances of becoming a soccer coach?
No, I'm not into soccer. Growing up in a small town in East Texas, I played just about every sport, except they didn't play soccer. They really didn't have it. I played football, I played basketball, I played baseball, played golf, all of those, but not soccer. So I don't see myself being a soccer coach because I don't know anything about it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. What is offsides in soccer? What does that mean?
I couldn't tell you. It's when it's something dealing with running past a line or two with a ball coming back. I don't know.
See, I don't know either.
Okay.
And I have 4 kids, and a couple of them did play soccer. So, it's just,
And yeah, my daughter's 7. I don't think they're calling offsides yet.
Yeah, not yet, not yet. And everybody wins right now.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Now I can have an intelligent conversation on basketball and baseball, things like that. Soccer,
Yeah.
I got nothing.
So what would you see as your greatest accomplishment in life, either personally or professionally?
Personally, my daughter.
Okay.
I mean, definitely the greatest day of my life was the day she was born. And, you know, she has a lot of my traits, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it. Thank the Lord she looks like my wife and acts a lot like her too most of the time.
Okay.
But, you know, overall greatest accomplishment, that by far.
Yeah. Does she have your wit?
Again, for better or for worse, we had somewhat, yes.
Okay. Yeah,
she has my sarcasm, yes.
Okay. Sarcasm, yes. That may be a better word of what I was trying to say. Yeah. In our networking group, everybody's looking forward to when Greg speaks and when he gives his moment, right? And so because he's just got great timing and uses what other people say in the room and in your moment, and it's just it's a gift. It's a gift. Have you ever used that gift in the courtroom?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And in law school, when you're taking the trial classes, that's what you're trained to do. You're trained to go off what the other person says. If we're in a trial and you give an opening statement, then you know the best thing I can do is you know, use what you say against you.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, we're trained to do that. And you know, the same thing on cross-examination. You have to think quickly on your feet. It's not necessarily a gift. I mean, kind of, it runs in our family. When my dad and his brothers and when my grandfather was alive, get all them in a room together. That's that's what it is. You better be quick.
Yeah. So it was a learned behavior.
Yes. Absolutely. Survival. Yes.
Yeah, survival. So is there something in life that you've done that you would never do again?
And there are lots of things I've done that I would never do again. Not many of them I can talk about. No,
Okay.
Well, good question. Something in life that I've done that I would never do again. Well, I was an accountant for 4 years. I don't want to do that again.
Okay. And
good skill to have.
For what reason?
I've always been a numbers person. I do have that skill set. I'm a numbers person. My mother's been a math teacher for the past 50 years. I've kind of inherited that gene. I don't want to do it for a living. I don't get to interact with people. I don't get to talk to people. I was sitting behind a computer doing spreadsheets for 4 years. If I got up to talk to someone, you know, that was frowned upon. So it wasn't my cup of tea. I'm glad those people are out there, but I just don't want to do that. So
yeah.
I'm glad I went to law school and am practicing law. That's more my personality type.
Sure. So when I was going back to work a little bit here, when I was in my field and doing my work as a PI, there seemed like there was a lot of movement amongst the family law firms. Like, you'd have one attorney here, and then 2 weeks later you'd see them like somewhere else, and then 2 years later they'd be somewhere else, and it just seemed like there was a churning amongst, like, everybody knows everybody, right?
Yes.
It seems like everybody has worked with each other at a firm at one point or another. So, what is that about?
I don't know how to explain it, except I would imagine it's like that in other areas.
It's
right?
like that in the realtor community. I mean,
Yeah.
we have people that move. We're all independent contractors, and so we're all moving to different brokerages because you see the shiny penny over here or whatever. But I just didn't know if it was similar or.
It's very similar. In family law, we don't have that many really big family law exclusive firms. I mean, there are a couple in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and those are some of the biggest in the country. But overall, you don't have that. It's typically smaller boutique firms, and you know, there's turnover in that, just like there is with everything else. And some people will come up through some of the bigger firms and then decide they want to go off on their own. You know, it's like any other area of business. It's just one of those things. But it is, to get to your point, everybody knows everybody in the family law community. You and I have had these conversations. Oh, do you know so-and-so? Oh, yes, I had a case against them last week or whatever.
Right.
For such a large city, it is a small family law section, small bar.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever had a case that ended in 61 days? And the significance of that, right?
Is, a divorce has to be on file at least 60 days before it's finalized.
Okay.
Have I ever? Yes. Not that many. A lot of times people will tell you when they first meet with you, oh, we can get this done in 60 days. And, after you ask them about 3 questions, you'll realize, no, we can't. But it does happen. It's just not that frequent, especially with their new rules out there that set deadlines for when you're supposed to do things in cases. And those make it, I would say, virtually impossible now to get it done in 60 days.
Right.
But if the people know exactly what they want and have thought everything out, and I mean everything, which they typically don't, but you can do it.
Sure. So in your life, have you, from your experiences, do you have any fears? What is your greatest fear in life and why?
Greatest fear. Heights.
Okay.
That's the one I can think of off the top of my head. But greatest fear is being forgotten.
Okay.
People not remembering who you are. It's better for people. Well, I won't say that, but yeah. I would say
being forgotten. So let's talk about that for a minute. So leaving behind a legacy of some sort.
Yeah.
So what are you doing to leave a legacy? What is your legacy going to be?
What I would love to do, and what I would love to say I do, is make an impact on every person I meet. I can't say whether or not I do. That's up to the people that I talk to. The main thing that I can do to build a legacy, I think, is to be the best parent I can be, to be the best example for my child that I can be, to be the best example to other people that I can be.
Right.
To meet as many people as I can and touch their lives.
So was there anybody in your family who was an attorney?
Not close family.
Not
I have
close.
some distant relatives that were.
Okay.
But no, my family was a family of teachers.
Okay.
Both my parents were high school teachers. Both have since retired. My mother just retired after 50 years. My dad retired a little over 10 years ago. He was an English teacher and coached everything. My example for wanting to make an impact on people came from them.
Sure.
Because they, throughout their careers have touched so many lives. And, seeing that growing up as an example was just awesome. So, obviously I didn't go into that field. I also have aunts, uncles, cousins, a lot of other people that are teachers that do the same thing. But I've tried to find ways to be able to reach people like that. I've been on boards of charities and, teach Sunday school right now, which is the kids' Sunday school, which is the most fun thing ever.
Right. What age?
First and second grade this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So my daughter's class.
Right.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, it is. So do you serve on any nonprofit boards at the moment?
No, I just rolled off of one a year or two ago. It was Young Community Partners of Dallas. They help abused and neglected children in the Dallas area that are going into CPS care, things like that, and buy stuff for them, school supplies. We would do drives where we would get backpacks and school supplies at the beginning of school years and pack their backpacks for them and stuff like that. Toy drives at Christmas and things of that nature. That was just really meaningful and impactful. Yeah.
So do you deal much with the foster care system?
Not really, no. I deal with CPS in certain cases. I'll do some adoptions. Every now and then. That's not the primary area of practice, but I do them.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. What are 3 words that describe you? If you had to pick 3 words, what would those be?
Oh, man. Oh, my Lord.
Very fitting, yes. Did that just come out of his mouth? No. Mm-hmm. Okay. Are those the 3 words you're going with, Greg?
I think that's what people think when they see me.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Let's see. What do I think my 3 words
what
are?
What are your 3 words?
Okay.
That best describe you.
Fun, energetic, happy.
Fun, energetic, and happy. And would your
optimistic, if we can throw another one in there.
And would your wife say the same thing?
For the most part. Well,
Okay.
Yeah. Depends on the day.
Right. Okay. Very good. So going back to childhood, is there a special childhood moment that you have that you reflect on every now and then, like whether with grandparents or your parents or whatever? Is there some memory that you have?
Yeah, grandparents, you said. So I grew up, I'm an only child, okay, and I grew up out in the country in the middle of nowhere, right? It was 10 miles outside the nearest town where I went to school, outside of a town called Pittsburgh, Texas. Every Friday night, though, I would go stay with my grandmother over in Mount Pleasant, about 20 miles away. You know, I always thought that was a special treat. Looking back on it, my parents wanted me out of the house probably. They needed a break. Right. I get it now. Yep. But no, going over there and hanging out with my grandmother. She had cable TV. We didn't out there. So, I mean, it was like a special treat. They had restaurants in the town, and I mean, it was just awesome. So I do have fond memories of that growing up. You know, spending time with family. Our family was very close, even though small. Yeah. As you, so your daughter, is she able to spend time with your parent? Like, has that transcended down to generations to where she's able to spend time with your parents? Yes. So, like I said, I'm an only child, and that makes my daughter the only grandchild of my parents. Oh, they would do anything to see her as much as possible. So. Sure. With my mother retiring, they still live in Mount Pleasant, which is 120 miles from here, give or take. So they'll come in and see her and stay at our house now when we go out of town or something. You know, that just happened a couple of weeks ago where they came and spent the weekend with her, and they get to see her probably not as much as they would like, but pretty good bit. And Vivian loves it too. Yeah. Now it's interesting that you pulled out grandparents, because that's where my fondest memories are too. Really? Right? It's just from grandparents, and I mean, I still have a grandparent alive. So at 49, I have a grandparent that's still alive. So that's amazing. It is amazing, right? Yeah, and on my other side of the family too, my dad's side, on the weekends, his parents lived here in Dallas, and my uncle lived here. So we'd get together on Saturdays. Me and my dad would meet them about halfway out in Greenville and play golf together. So I have a lot of fun memories of that too. Yeah, for sure, sure. Okay, so you mentioned nonprofit, and as you know, I'm the chief happiness officer of a nonprofit called Who Do You Know, and I always ask my guests the 3 questions of the 3 pillars that we focus on. So we inspire people to imagine and dream again from any walk of life by making connections. So we make connections to connect you with the person that you want to meet who's living. We make connections to make a dream come true of an experience you want to have or a place you want to go. So, Greg, who is a person who's living that you would like to meet? And maybe somebody who's out there that's watching or listening can make a connection to make that happen. George W. Bush. Okay, he's here in Dallas. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. Never met him, and I've always studied presidents. When I was a young kid, after school, I would go to my mother's classroom after school was out when she was doing tutoring, and I memorized the presidents. She had the little calendar in there.
Right.
And so I memorized all the presidents when I was in like 2nd grade. And we had a brand new set of encyclopedias growing up. I would go home and read about them. And, I've just always been fascinated with the presidency. And that's why it just came to mind, because he's here in Dallas. I mean,
sure, that
would just be really cool. And, I have such a respect for people who have to make those kinds of decisions, and the decisions he had to make after 9/11 and things like that just affected so many people. I mean, but regardless of politics, that's just, it's a huge responsibility, and I definitely respect people who do it.
Yeah, fantastic. So George W. Bush, so a place you want to go that you haven't been to yet?
Scotland.
Scotland.
Yes.
What's significant about Scotland?
The Old Course in St. Andrews and Scotch.
Oh, so you do, don't leave out the Scotch. So you do want to play golf while you're there?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And an experience you want to have?
The Old Course at St. Andrews.
Well,
it's right there at the top. But let's see, an experience I want to have.
You said you're afraid of heights, so I'm assuming skydiving or bungee jumping is not.
No, I
on that
don't
list.
really want to do that.
Yeah.
No. I'm cool with heights as long as I'm, inside. Like
So
you're looking out a
inside a plane?
window, something like that. Yeah, in a plane, I'm fine. The jumping out part, no. I would say an experience, it would probably be golf related. So the Old Course at St. Andrews, or I always want to play TPC at Sawgrass too, with the Island Green and things like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, as we wrap up, is there anything that you would go back and tell your, let's just say, 10-year-old self, knowing what you know today, what would you tell young Greg?
Stop being shy.
Wait. You used to be shy?
Absolutely, 100%.
So I did too. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was scared to death to talk in front of people. I mean, even through high school, I think I kind of got out of it maybe when I was in college. But yeah, I would go back and tell myself, quit caring what other people think. Yeah. Be yourself and don't let anybody tell you different,
But isn't that's so hard to do as a kid though, right?
Of course it is.
Yeah. I mean, because not only for other kids at school, but grown-ups, like some people don't want, like kids don't want grown-ups to know certain things about them, or but still at the end of the day.
I'll tell you what, my kid is a great example of this. She doesn't care. This morning, we're trying to get her dressed for school. She picks out her own clothes, and sometimes it's adventurous. She couldn't care less.
Right.
Told her this morning, go get socks on. She pulled out 2 socks that are mismatched. I was like, hey, we probably want to match those up. I don't care.
You know, it's a thing now, Dad, right? The mismatched socks.
I don't know.
You should do that at court one day.
It's not like she did that on purpose. She just grabbed 2, and
Well, my kids do it on purpose.
Yeah, really?
So, they are. There's something going on, and it has been for a year or two.
I wear the colorful socks now. Mismatched, I don't. But
I'll do the colorful ones too.
Yeah.
Mismatched, no. So, well, thank you for being here. And
thank you for having me.
So, as we leave today, who is a great referral for you? So, if you could talk to the camera and let them know, like, who you're looking for to represent.
Well, a great referral for me is someone who's going through one of the family law issues that we talked about earlier. Somebody whose marriage is in trouble and they're thinking about filing for divorce. Somebody who is involved in a child custody situation. Somebody who is about to get married and is wondering what to do with finances during the marriage. All of those are great.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks again for being here, sir.
Well, thank you for having me.
You
are
welcome.
It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome anytime. And thank you all for tuning in, whether you're listening or watching. And tune in next week as I have another fascinating person with an inspiring story. Y'all take care. Bye.
The Matt Hilton Show would like to thank our sponsors, Hilton Realty Advisors and Maria Leach with the First United Mortgage Group. The Matt Hilton Show would also like to thank our partners, the Who Do You Know organization. You can find out more at wdyk.org. If you'd like to contact Matt or know a fascinating person with an inspiring story that would make a great guest, reach out to the show at themattHiltonshow@gmail.com.